Greetings from Costa Rica. I'm lucky to be joined today by Alonso Fonseca of Pignataro Abogados. Alonso and his team are opening up an office here in Playa Flamingo, Guanacaste. But out of sheer goodwill, he's willing to appear on my channel and provide information to help empower my viewers as always. Alonso, thanks very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Matt. Hi, everyone.
Today we're going to be talking about some critical issues affecting development of real estate in Guanacaste. Specifically, on my channel, I talk a ton about water and the water issues affecting development out here. Alonso has the inside scoop on some important issues and how the government works behind water. So first and foremost, we're going to cover some issues affecting wells, development, etc. here in Guanacaste. We're going to touch briefly on new tourism parcels. And in general, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the reasons Alonso and his research impressed me, how you should be doing due diligence on property in Guanacaste, and a very important question to answer whenever you're considering buying here. Stay tuned. Alonso Fonseca, thanks so much for joining me again. I really appreciate it. If you didn't catch last Friday's live broadcast, Alonso gave some great updates on Law 9996 for the Investor Residency Program. Today we're talking about some development issues in Guanacaste. I wanted to start off first and foremost with some super interesting information we've been discussing about wells in the country. What question is currently coming up with these unregistered hand-dug wells here in Costa Rica?
The famous artisanal wells, as they're mentioned by the regulation, by the law, and by the local municipalities. The main game changer that we found is that with the new government, direction was passed to MINAE, which is our environmental authority, and to Dirección de Aguas, which is the central water office of Costa Rica that regulates water in all of the country, where they instructed, or day by day, I mean the executive branch instructed the environmental and the water department to stop requiring artisanal wells to be registered in that office. The main goal behind this direction was to improve the times and make a better effort of the time of the water authority office. So if you're not required to register your artisanal well, you can go directly to your local municipality and present any type of proof that you have an artisanal well in your property. That usually comes in the form of an affidavit. And with this document, you may comply for the water requirement in order to get a building permit, which is the most common case.
That is the huge point. Well, and to summarize in bullet points, the new government is friendly to artisanal wells.
Yeah.
Artisanal or pozos artesanales,
exactly,
as they're described in Costa Rica. I would say the distinction is that they're hand-dug.
They're hand-dug. They don't have
versus machine bored.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, is the only technical requirement for pozos artesanales that they're hand-dug?
They're hand-dug.
Is there a depth limit?
The depth limit is not as big as in an industrial.
Okay, so there's also a measurement.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend hire a technical expert on how to make your well be certainly artisanal instead of industrial well.
Well, and interestingly, this, I directed a watershed, a nonprofit based on protecting this aquifer for many years. And one of the frequent questions that I get from Costa Rica buyers, they want properties that have water or access to one of these wells. Not all property is the same, folks, and in every place on earth below ground, water only comes up to the water table. That water table is a relationship between where water drains out to the ocean, if you're living in a coastal area, the mountains up above, and basically where there's enough water to keep everything supplied underground. So in a lot of Guanacaste, you could buy a mountainside property, and there's no way the best diggers on earth are ever going to get down to water. We're talking about farms that are down in a floodplain of an artery that has water. So you need to be on what's called either a major creek or a river, or within the same level, more or less, that you can access the phreatic level or the water table to be able to even get water from one of these wells. But this is huge news because the new government is saying, and that was a terrible summary. The new government's saying you can use you don't have to register or get a permit for these wells. You can then use those unregistered hand-dug wells for your building permit water access.
Exactly. That's the executive branch position. The main issue that we are finding is that not every municipality is understanding the regulation in the same way, and specifically regarding technical requirements. Mm-hmm. For instance, speaking about two specific cases, we have the Consejo Municipal de Cóbano, which is known as the municipality of Cóbano. That is not technically a municipality because Cóbano is a district, not a
it's
canton.
a Consejo de Distrito.
Exactly, but they are not understanding the regulation as that, and they are still requiring the artisanal well to be registered in order to solicitate the construction permit. On the other hand, we have the municipality of Santa Cruz, which is 100% in the same team as the executive branch, and they are understanding that artisanal wells are not required to be registered, and they are willing to give building permits if you present documentation proving that you have an artisanal well.
Yep. And the current administration, Rodrigo Chavez, came into power now. They have more than a year in office.
They have a little more of a year.
Yeah. Overall, I've only done brief comments on their administration because, to be frank, I'm not that close to the political news. In my perception, they've been received very well, that they're probably more popular than recent other administrations, but that overall he's had a very practical sort of let's get problems resolved immediately kind of approach. Rather, he seems to be a very, very direct president versus others that have come in as...
That's certainly the approach that he's taking, and at least from my side of view, again, and I'm not either any type of political interest, at least from a foreign direct investment perspective, they have been certainly open to new type of investments and new type of ways to get things done. That certainly helps foreign direct investment in Costa Rica, because one of the huge issues we found was bureaucracy in every office.
Was restricting it for sure. And just like every administration in Costa Rica is trying to solve the fiscal balance every year, and that direct foreign investment can make up a pretty nice chunk of the tax revenue quickly.
Certainly.
It's certainly made, to me, I look at, I'm sure that Liberación, their popularity over the decades came in large part, the middle class was flourishing at that time. The country was opening up, and so everybody's standard of living was coming into sort of
going high.
Capitalism and the globalized economy, etc. It's very interesting. Costa Rica is a country of 5.2 million people. Alonso and his colleagues are day-to-day working with the water ministry, all kinds of different actual government entities. It's not something that's completely detached from
certainly not
reality like in Washington. So thinking of these other solutions for opening up investment, the government had published an initial decree about these tourism parcels. To my knowledge, it just looked like they were trying to give a window to rename agricultural parcels.
Basically, yes.
Has that moved forward whatsoever?
Unfortunately not. Right now, our Congress is certainly focused on two main bills, one of them being the organized crime bill, and the second one being the 3 work hours project. And that has moved every other project into a secondary level where they are not moving right now. But certainly we are all looking forward for this tourism parcels project, because as you mentioned, it's going to create a brand new segment of land in Guanacaste, because we have the residential and commercial areas, and we have the agricultural ones that had a lot of the limitations, as you may know. So this new type of parcel, we certainly brought the options inside municipalities and for any type of tourism-related project in Guanacaste.
We were talking a bit about the general process here, you know, where these tourism parcels stand right now. Yes, there was the initial decree published. Costa Rica has a national magazine or publication called La Gaceta, Gaceta. That's published every day or every week?
It's published daily.
Daily.
Yeah.
And it contains all of the public business of the government. I was asking Alonso a little bit more, and even so, to bring a bill to debate in front of the single, you know, the unicameral legislature, they have to publish an initial version of the bill in La Gaceta. So this bill currently, they basically published the rough draft.
Exactly.
Having a unicameral legislature, they're really focused on one priority at a time. Right now it's organized crime, which definitely they're looking at narcos in Limon, which is the Caribbean side of the country. You know, they're trying to figure out where, you know, they can gain more control over stuff coming in and out of the ports. But you do see that the legislator is generally doing one project and advancing single bills.
With that specific bill, what they're trying to do is to cut loopholes in legal judicial process, criminal processes, so they can speed up the processes and make the criminal code more effective to control those type of situations.
No, absolutely. So looking at, you know, Rodrigo Chavez and his stance on, it seems, you know, he's obviously trying to foster development, etc.
Definitely. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned, to go back to this wells question, you go from county to county and you can get different answers.
Basically, that's our case-to-case strategy, because we have found different answers within the construction department of every county.
Yeah.
In some cases, even the civil engineer head of the construction department is not in the same stance as the mayor of the county.
Yeah.
So we have even found those type of situations within the county itself.
Further, you know, it's not his goal to justify his existence, but, excuse me, obviously these questions are exactly what lawyers have to be doing for you in due diligence on a property. Now, I know that there are water issues, obviously, down here in Playa Junquial, which is an idyllic, undiscovered community. We really have been blessed not to have water issues. Our asada has never been affected by some of the bigger regional things that have happened. Now, since in 2008, I remember these water availability letters were super casual.
Yeah.
You could really see that, you know, committees were giving out water access letters, which is a legal requirement to get your building permit. This is what we're talking about with these unregistered wells. So would you say, is it that the federal government had a brief moment of really taking control, and now Rodrigo Chavez is trying to ease back a little bit? Is it, or is this sort of, you know, do you still see that top-down control from AIA continuing into the future?
It's funny to mention that the regulation of asadas was passed since 1958. So imagine that we have had the bill and the regulation in effect since that time. But we are still feeling like it's something that just has happened like from 5 years ago until now, okay? So I would definitely say that the first issue is that the AIA was not doing a correct job of controlling and making an exercise of compliance on each of the asadas.
Okay.
that initial lack of control sum up to the buoyant development of Guanacaste,
Yep.
where every single community saw a way of getting water by creating the asada,
Yep.
which not necessarily significate that there was water in that community. It
Yep.
only mentioned water in paper, not in actual existence. So those two effects.
That's enormous. No, the one of the things that bears talking about, these people creating asadas here. The law has been in place since 1958. You said.
Yeah.
It has not been modified significantly.
No,
that does
not
AYA
significantly.
and asadas. This is national water law.
Yeah.
AYA or AYA is the national ministry that regulates all of this. The asadas are the community organizations, and this law has been in place.
Yes.
But you essentially saw lots of developers come out to Guanacaste, and where the law says, okay, a community can get together and form an asada.
An association, yeah.
Yeah, and a legal association based on, it's a very democratic process.
Certainly.
You have to have at least X number of households that get together.
10 members at least
Yeah.
to be an actual association.
They have to be from the community.
Yeah, have
you have to
annual
register
assemblies.
it. You have to
Yeah.
have annual assemblies. There's transparency, on and on and on. Lots of developers took this process and just did it within their private gated community or to whatever end they needed.
Yeah.
We don't need to go in to any specific developments because we'd probably get some angry emails.
Yeah.
But easily we could immediately list off a dozen different developments where, essentially the developer came in and created the asada in some degree of non-democratic, non-pure way,
Yeah.
and then gave themselves the water.
Exactly.
So today we're picking up the pieces from all of this in Guanacaste.
Exactly.
In 2018, you saw AIA really come down hard.
There
and
was
start-
a big effort of AIA to start making this control exercise, and they even started restricting some asadas to issue water letters. They got up to that level where they knew that this specific asada was not given realistic water letters or had no realistic water capabilities, and they continued to issue water letters because that's the business they were into. So they started even preventing certain asadas to issue more water letters.
And technically, they could have done this anywhere in the country since 1958.
Exactly.
Intervened in asadas and said, hey, no new service. And technically, asadas have criteria through which they're not supposed to offer new service unless it's there.
And it's super technical. It's not either political or legal. It's technical. It's a water availability.
Yeah. They have all of these rigorous criteria. And, I've been really amazed. We're working with a local asada specifically on the project that Alonso and I are dealing with. He represents buyers and represented them on other purchases. They're now investing in Guanacaste. This asada is a community organization. You've got really members of Paraíso, de Santa Cruz, de Guanacaste. You have an administrator who is one of the paid people who's actually really the legally responsible person. He's somebody that clearly has a huge amount of experience in administering these water systems. And, we're negotiating with an 8-person board of directors that, some of these people are, have technical backgrounds. Some of these people wait tables for a living, but they're the community and they're in charge of deciding whether or not we get water. Now, because it's a good asada, they actually have already done a technical study to see if there's actually enough water available for the project that they want to do, and they have an idea of how they can provide it. For a long time in Guanacaste, it was just...
That didn't happen.
When somebody said, I need a new project, give me the water availability, the asada in the area would say, that's great, congratulations, welcome to the community.
Exactly.
And here's 500 new residential water connections. Are there particular areas of would you just say that Guanacaste is sort of the area of Costa Rica where this has happened the most, or does it happen elsewhere?
I would think every area has like a different issue. For Guanacaste specifically, the good news is that the only issue is that a lot of people are trying to get into Guanacaste and are trying to develop Guanacaste. So it's a matter of there's too many people coming in, and we need to make a logical use of the water resource. But it's certainly not a negative aspect. In some other areas, there have been cases of problems regarding the sewer water use going into the rivers, going into the ocean, and that's a more, I would say, negative aspect of the problem. And we still have some areas within or closer to San Jose where the AIA is not doing such an effective control as it is starting to do in Guanacaste. So we have some cases in the Central Valley where these unofficial water letters are still being used, as incredible as that may sound.
Yeah, and when unofficial water letters, they're being issued by like gated communities and that don't actually have a nationally registered, fully functional asada. Absolutely, I think you're still, it'll be decades more before all of these informal situations are cleared out of the system, but it's a small fraction of what it used to be.
Definitely.
Here in Guanacaste, I was telling Alonso when I was in Peace Corps and people in our community in 2008 were applying for little permits for their bonos de vivienda. They would have to have a water availability letter. I was typing these up on my computer, carrying them to a guy's house. And the guy was committee president of a committee that had lost its legal standing 15 years before. It was an agricultural project committee. And the guy would pull out an old 3D stamp, something that sort of perforates and puts a little thing on it. And that was fine. We'd take that to the municipality to get, whatever it was in the bono de vivienda process.
Okay.
And my little typed out letter with Tomas's signature was plenty.
Okay.
Today, your water letter certainly has to be, in some municipalities, it will have to be through an asada. But what the huge news is that, yes, in certain circumstances, it can be an affidavit proving that you have a well on your property.
Exactly, yes.
Could this be relevant for somebody who lives in... Now, so let me ask some further technical questions. Does the law say that the municipality has to see that there's water in that well and that it actually works?
The law does not get into those specific details, but at least in the Santa Cruz process that we have seen personally, a member of the construction department makes an inspection on the site to verify the type of well that you have, the existence, and the actual water coming out of the well.
Okay, so it comes down to a visit from somebody from the municipality.
Yeah.
But I mean, in my impression, the only places that you would not be allowed to dig your own hand-dug well would be within 15 meters of a quebrada or ria.
The same setbacks. Yeah, exactly.
In the Maritime Zone, could one assume that you're essentially restricted from building digging a hand-dug well within 200 meters of the ocean?
In the Maritime Zone, there's a difference.
I mean, you're going to have salt water coming out of it no matter what.
There's a big difference. The first one is technical differences that you may not get actual drinkable water. And the second one is that in a maritime zone, you're restricted to the zoning plan of the municipality.
Yeah.
And that zoning plan, in most cases, I will be definitely guaranteeing that it forbids making any type of well.
Yeah.
Because of the specific regulations.
Yeah, but interestingly, our current plan regulador for Santa Cruz stops at Junquillal, and there's another kilometer of development south of the plan regulador within Junquillal.
Yeah.
And then, we're not even talking about Lagarto, Venado, Marbella, on and on and on. So technically, some of these beachfront properties, although you wouldn't have good water, they're all sitting, on one side or other of an estuary. There's no current zoning plan.
Yeah.
And these zoning plans typically only cover the 200 meters of maritime zone. So if you go just a little bit inland, likely there's no further restrictions that would stop you from digging a well.
Probably, yes.
So let's say I have a piece of land just outside the maritime zone, fully titled, maybe 300 or 400 meters to the beach, in an area where the ASADA cannot currently give me my new water letter. Is this possibly a solution for me? Can I, even though I'm maybe only 300 meters from the water, there's no zoning plan, I can maybe drop a hand-dug well on my own property, get water from it, and use that as my building permit justification if I'm in Santa Cruz County.
That's a specific case that these artisanal wells came to solve, where you have a property that is 100% titled and not affected by any type of restriction, like outside of Maritime Zone. You do not have access to any ASADA. You don't have access to AIA. You don't have access to any form of legal water source.
So that's a very interesting distinction then. I can't get my current water service letter because the ASADA is not giving them.
Exactly.
But I'm within the jurisdiction of that ASADA. I live within an area that they should be giving me service. How does that play out specifically? Do you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the difference between on the specific details on why the ASADA cannot provide you with the service. Okay.
So
if there is no existence of water pipes or any type of project near your property, you are considered in one of the exemptions that where you can dig up your own well. But if the problem of the ASADA is a problem of that they have certain pipes going to a certain limit near your property, but they just need to make a little investment to continue that pipeline, you will not be allowed to dig your own well.
Okay.
And you will have to explore the options with the ASADA, like we are negotiating with our client with the Paraisos on how to get the details to get the actual capacity of water near that property.
Well, and what in the situation where the ASADA has been told by AIA no new service, one of these restrictions that they've put in place, where do the chips fall? To me, logically, they shouldn't be able to get a building permit based on your hand-dug well because the whole object of AIA is to limit water extraction in that area. Have you had a scenario where, let's say, the Santa Rosa ASADA right now is not giving new letters. If I buy a lot right in the middle of Santa Rosa on their lines, they have the capacity. Technically, the line is running there, etc.
But they're not giving you water.
They're not giving a new service letter.
Yeah, that would be a certainly gray area case, and that's an excellent question.
Interesting. Because I think you'd have some neighborhoods where a lot of digging would start next week if this were a possibility.
Exactly. The interesting thing is that the philosophy behind the artisanal wells allowance or allowing artisanal wells is that they do not impact the water and the riverbeds in the same way as formal wells.
Yep.
So technically speaking, they shouldn't have such a huge impact environmentally into the water system.
Yep.
So they should be technically allowed. But that is a great gray area case that would be certainly need to be analyzed on the specific details of the property. But yeah.
And this is what happens, obviously in every democracy in the world, there is law, and then there's how things play out in the courts over time. And we've been talking about different nuances that are playing out over time here in Guanacaste. This possibility of obtaining a building permit with a hand-dug well in an area where you're not covered by an ASADA, it sounds like a no-brainer and would be one of the most interesting ways forward, I think, for developers to create luxury homes. You could see a lot of inventory created for foreigners based on, the opportunity to finally get water access where maybe, a mountain property, for example, could be turned into
Certainly,
a fully functioning
I have a case
home.
near Tamarindo where our client is transforming a mountain into a residential project.
Yep.
Remember that the only restriction for artisanal wells is that you can only use one well for one single residential unit. Okay, and these are usually cases where you have agricultural parcels.
Yep.
So you have this big, huge lot.
Yep.
With a nice home, I would say a luxury home, but it's a single residential unit with a single artisanal well.
Yeah.
And that functions perfectly, and that got the construction building permit without
Absolutely.
any problem. Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. We're going to have you back very often to give further information. Alonso Fonseca is a partner, am I right? Or
No.
associate, or your title,
yeah.
associate at Pignataro Abogados.
Yeah.
If you want to say their name 5 times fast, you'll get a 10% discount on your
like Beetlejuice. Exactly, yeah.
They're based out of San Jose, but are currently opening their office in Playa Flamingo. Alonso is representing buyers of mine. I was immediately impressed by the due diligence report that they put together. You guys went through the title chain of a property all the way to it being the origin of a property. I've seen plenty of lawyers who represent buyers in Guanacaste who don't immediately do that research, and it's a huge blind spot in their due diligence, especially if you're looking at coastal real estate.
Definitely.
One of the things that I'm going to be having Alonso back on my channel about is some huge coastal real estate news that is going to really rock a certain community.
Yeah.
Be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the notifications bell, because as soon as this decree becomes more public, we're going to be back talking about how big is the farm?
It's 1,400,000 meters, I think.
Yeah, the 1 million square meter piece of coastal property that the Costa Rican government is about to challenge the origin of the title for. This is exactly why you do your research all the way to the origin when you buy a property, and it's going to be exactly the kind of thing that's going to transform how people are looking at coastal real estate.
Definitely, yeah.
Stay tuned for that. Thank you, Alonso.
Thank you, Matt.
Appreciate it so much.
Take care. Thank you.
Have a great afternoon and stay tuned.